What's up, everybody? Thanks again for joining Tankers Fantasy Football. Well, today we're going to talk about the AFC South. So we got the Houston Texans.
We got some Indianapolis Colts.
Got my Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh, and then we just got them Tennessee Titans.
So first, before we get into the AFC South, we're going to talk about some stocks that have risen and dropped throughout the whole league here.
I'll put a little headlines up for this, It's kind of headline worthy.
So for the first time all year, in the top 3 average draft positions, there's a position besides a wide receiver, and David Johnson has found his way up to the 3rd average draft position.
My boy from Clinton, Iowa. I mean, I'm not necessarily endorsing drafting him over the likes of Odell Beckham Jr., but the fact that he is going there, I mean, man, that makes me feel real good about where I got him at the 6 hole the other night.
Another guy we've been talking about this, A.J. Green over Hopkins, and A.J. Green is finally average draft position higher than Hopkins on the year.
I got a lot of mock draft views. I think people were listening in, taking some Tankers advice, bumping AJ up to the 4th overall draft position. But I'm in love with him. I really am. I think his targets are going nowhere but up.
Le'Veon Bell has now, after going from 4 games to 3 games, has back solidifying himself as a first-round pick there. What do you feel about that?
I mean, I know he's going to miss these 3 games, and he looked pretty rough the other day in preseason. I mean, he definitely hasn't shook the rust off yet. I mean,
Had
that is
fumble
not the
in
case.
preseason.
And he wasn't looking that good. I mean, I know he's like of all the running backs in the NFL, he's probably like the biggest difference maker, like guaranteed difference maker on the football team. But I think there's just a slew of wide receivers that I might take him over there. I mean, especially since when you draft him, you got almost a burden. Like, it's almost a burden that you have to draft DeAngelo Williams instead of drafting a guy you're looking to play in your flex for the entire season.
And DeAngelo Williams is still being drafted around the 6th round. It's the late 6th, but still, that has not moved much at all from where we saw a couple weeks ago. And he was looking at starting 4 games, and now it's only 3. So for me, it just doesn't make sense. I almost feel like if you're going to get Bell and you know it's only going to be 3 games, you might as well try a flyer on another guy who could eventually find himself into the starting roster on a weekly basis.
Oh, for sure. I'd rather almost take a risk on a flyer that could actually make my starting lineup throughout the season than have to spend a 6th or a 7th round pick on DeAngelo Williams. I mean, that's a 6th, 7th round pick on a handcuff. I mean, that's insanity.
All right, and now, with the Tony Romo injury, Dez Bryant has slid down to the mid to early 2nd.
He's going like fifth pick in the 2nd right now, isn't he? 5th pick in the 2nd?
He is now going behind Marshall, behind Keenan Allen, and behind Mike Evans.
Wow, Keenan Allen and Mike Evans are nudging him down. I mean, that's hard. I mean, I guess the book's still out on his Dak Prescott guy, but if he can go in there and do anything, I don't see any. I mean, drafting Keenan Allen over Dez Bryant, I mean, I don't know. That's pretty unsavory. The upside of Bryant is way higher. I mean, Keenan Allen's a Jarvis Landry. I mean, that's what he is. I mean, sure, he blew it up last year early on before he got hurt, but, I mean, Dez Bryant.
He's a guy who, no matter who's throwing the ball, can get 10 touchdowns out there. We're going to hit 3 guys in bulk here who have all found their way up to the 5th round. That's Josh Gordon, going 2nd.
2nd pick in the 5th round.
Melvin Gordon and Marvin Jones. And I'm going to throw another one out there, and Jeremy Hill. All 4 of those guys have found their way into the 5th round.
Melvin Gordon has raised a good 3 rounds over the last month, easy. I mean, he was kind of like a guy you were taking a flyer on, but now it's more like, oh, maybe this guy, the hype train's been rolling.
You're kind of drafting him as your RB2.
Feeling good about him at an RB2 almost. Now, I'm not sure I'm sewn up on feeling really good about him as an RB2, but I think he's definitely one of those guys in the 5th round that you think can take that, harness that, and run with it for the rest of the season. If anybody in that 5th round can do it, it's him.
All right, now we'll talk about kind of some sliders in bulk. Dion Lewis, obviously, you had to know his stock was going to take a big
Plummeting,
hit.
went from the 4th round to the 12th round after this cleanup surgery came out. And he's a list missing 6 or 7 weeks. I'm not even convinced he's ever going to play football this year.
There's a report that's saying he most likely will be back this season.
That scares the hell out of me. What do you mean most likely? There was a chance that he wasn't going to be? Like, oh my God.
And Devontae Parker now going in the 8th round. That's a solid drop of a round, maybe even 2 rounds from what they were talking.
Usually he's going in the mid-6th. I mean, now he's going mid-8th. And I mean, I'm kind of falling out in love with this guy, but I think, if you're still in love with him, you got to be in love with that mid-8th round average draft position. And if you think this guy can turn it around and be the showcase of an Adam Gase aerial attack, that 8th round draft pick is great. I mean, that might even be your first bench player. I know we got him in the 8th round the other night, and he was our first bench player, and I feel good about it. I really do. I mean, if anybody's going to step up.
I mean, he's got some of the best upside of any receiver going at this position here. Another surprising riser, Christine Michael, is going in the 9th now.
He was basically going undrafted at the beginning of August. I mean, that's an incredible rise, and I'm buying him. They are still saying that Thomas Rolls is the unquestionable starter, but I'm afraid that might be coach speak. But, I mean, if Thomas Rolls goes out there and his injury, holds him back even the slightest, or if he just doesn't perform, I mean, Christine Michael could just steal this job in October. I feel like mid-October, we could be talking about Christine Michael being a feature back of a very good football team.
One guy we're going to touch on just because it's the AFC South. He'll be our last guy before we get to the division. And Will Fuller has flown up all the way to the 12th round. And that's a guy, there's no second target really in Houston over there.
And Jalen Strong, but I don't think he's necessarily they drafted Will Fuller to man that deep guy, to be that other guy out wide next to DeAndre Hopkins.
And they've said he's had an awesome camp. He's looked good in preseason. And he's just head and shoulders flown by Jalen Strong at this point. So, with that said, let's go to the AFC South here.
Let's hit him.
First, we're going to go with the studs. And who else than Allen Robinson?
My boy, Allen Robinson. Now, Allen Robinson came out there last week, week 1, and you got all excited. You were drafting him in the 5th, maybe early 6th, and you thought, you're like, this guy's my wide receiver 3, this guy's my boy. And he went out there week 1 and hit you with a one-catch performance, and you're like, oh no, maybe I dropped the ball here. Maybe he isn't the showstopper. Maybe he isn't the mainer. But then he was. This guy was only one of 6 wide receivers last year to finish with 300 points.
In those 6 receivers, he only had 151 targets. If you take the 5 receivers above him, they averaged 186 targets, which is 35 more.
35 more targets. That's over 2 more targets a game. 2.5 more targets a game.
And this guy put up 14 touchdowns, 1,400 yards, only 80 catches on the season. He gave you that production.
80 catches. Look at this points per catch here. We're talking Julio Jones at 2.76 points per catch, Antonio Brown at 2.81, and Odell Beckham Jr. at 3.33. But you know who's better than all those guys? Our boy Allen Robinson, reeling in a 3.8 points per reception. That's boss hogging.
He was tied for first in the league in touchdowns, 14 reception touchdowns anyway. 12 of those were red zone touchdowns, which was first in the league. So you're saying, all right, this guy, he's just a red zone machine. But he is not a one-trick pony whatsoever.
He had the most yards in the league of passes over 20 yards at 672 yards.
And that's balls thrown over 20 yards.
That is
it's not
incredible.
Like screen passes going for 20. This is Bortles throwing it to him deep.
He is a multi-dimensional threat. He's that deep threat. He's that red zone threat. And hell, he's even kind of like a get that 5 yards to get a first down guy. I mean, he's a beast out there.
He does it all. 31 catches over 21 yards, which was also first in the league. Now I'm going to tell you something. This blew my mind.
It's going to blow your mind, people. It's going to blow your mind.
Since the 1970 merger.
Since the merger.
There have been 4 receivers.
Only 4.
That have had 14 touchdowns, 1,400 yards, and at least 17.5-yard average. Those 4 receivers, Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson, and Allen Robinson.
Allen Robinson. I mean, if that's not keeping the best company alive.
Possibly ever.
I don't know what it is. I mean, Jerry Rice, the GOAT, Randy Moss, Megatron. I mean, that's the best company I ever heard of. There's not one fluky in there.
And for the cherry on top, only Jerry Rice and Allen Robinson, those 2 guys were
Allen Robinson and the greatest of all time.
Were able to do it in as early as their 2nd season.
Incredible. Just incredible.
He's just a complete animal out there.
The man's the definition of stud. All right, what do we got? Moving on to another stud here out of the South. We got another receiver coming out of Texas. We got DeAndre Hopkins. Now, DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, he was only behind Antonio Brown and Julio Jones in targets last year. I mean, geez, that's incredible.
That's good company.
I mean, Andre Johnson left town. And Hopkins just took over. Like, he was like, well, I guess I'm better than Andre Johnson ever was, which is pretty crazy thing to say. Because Andre Johnson never had 10 touchdowns in a season. Andre Johnson's highest touchdowns in a season was 9. And he's out there Hopkins is out there reeling in 117 balls for you for almost 1,600 yards and 11 scores.
And he did all this with 4 different quarterbacks.
4 different quarterbacks. I mean, these weren't like 4 different Joe Montanas.
It was Brandon Weeden.
I mean, these are 4 different Jamooks.
TJ Yates, Hoyer, and Mallett.
My goodness.
This isn't much of a surprise, but it is impressive. He's the first receiver in NFL history to have a touchdown and a 100-yard receiving game from 4 different quarterbacks in the same season.
I mean, I don't matter who. I could be throwing him the ball. Yeah. At this point, I'm convinced I could be chucking him the rock out there, and this guy could steal it for me because those names he's saying are not good names. I mean, these guys are roster bubble names. These guys, I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, what, do you only have 1 game with less than 5 catches on the year? I mean, that's what you usually say about guys like Antonio Brown, and I mean, this guy's doing it. I mean, he's only done it once for you, but I don't think it's stopping anytime soon.
And 11 games over 88 yards.
11.
Almost 3/4 of the season you can count on for 88.
He had 8 games over 23 fantasy points in PPR last year. That's half the season over 23 fantasy points. Now, that's pretty damn good.
And we're talking about him being a target monster. He didn't see less than 10 targets in a game until week 12.
Less than 10 targets a game? He had more than 10 targets a game until week 12? At least 10? I mean, my goodness. That's like Devontae Adams targets, but he's actually producing for you out there.
These are 2 of the best young receivers in the league in the same division here.
Same division. We got 2 top 6 easy wide receivers right now. And these guys are just getting it done with lackluster. I mean, Bortles is good, but he's not like the studs that some of these other guys are having to check the ball to. And Hopkins is getting checked the ball from guys off the street. Bums off the street, for crying out loud. I mean, that's incredible.
All right, let's get some bums
Let's get some bums out there.
Put them up there.
Let's go. I'm falling off on the signs lately. I got to step my game up. All right, we're running out. What are we talking about here? We're talking about the bum. We're talking about Bum Deluxe. We're talking about Frank Gore. Now, Frank Gore has had less yards and less yards per carry every year since 2012.
4 years in a row, numbers going this direction.
3.7 yards a carry last year, which was his career low. And I mean, the guy, it's not like the offensive line's helping him out. I mean, this is a terrible offensive line. I mean, they're out there pulling Andrew Luck in the preseason because they can't block anybody. They're worrying about Luck getting hurt in the preseason because his offensive line is so bad. And you're thinking Frank Gore, old dusty boy Frank Gore, is going to be able to squeeze some yardage out of this? I just don't think so.
And reports coming out that the Colts want to lighten his workload.
Lighten his workload? I mean, the only thing he had going for him was workload.
And what amazes me is that the Colts have been so satisfied with Frank Gore as their only guy in that system.
They don't even go out there and draft anybody. They bring in this Josh Ferguson, and now they're talking about him being on the roster bubble, might not even making the team. And who's backing him up? Robert Turbin? I mean, I know the guy's got Hulk Hogan pythons, but apparently that doesn't make you a good running back.
I mean, he's got arms as big as my waist.
He's got 24-inch pythons out there.
If you've never Googled him, just do a favor.
It's
Google him and
ridiculous.
look
His
at
arms are bigger than his head. It doesn't make him a good player. But I mean, it's crazy. And Frank Gore, we're bringing it out. We're busting out the golden shovel on old Frankie here. First time the shovel's showing up to play. Frank Gore had 0 100-yard games last year, people. 0 100-yard games. I mean, my God. I mean, what else does he have? 2 games? 2 games. 2. Only 2 games where he had 19 points in PPR or better. And they're talking about lowering this guy's workload. Like, I don't think that's going to help his fantasy value by any means. And he's still getting drafted in the 6th round. Like, who are these people drafting Frank Gore? His mother?
Keep that shovel out, because we're going to hit another bum. Andre Johnson. Now
we're burying him today.
You're thinking, Andre Johnson, he left the Colts, but he couldn't escape the AFC South bum list.
Last year?
For the Titans.
I was one of the lucky people. I hope you did this too. As soon as Andre Johnson signed with the Colts, I traded him for whatever I could get.
And it was to me, I'm pretty sure.
And it was... I felt incredibly good about it. I mean, I got basically nothing but geez. I mean, whatever it takes. I mean, this guy did nothing. I mean, look at this. 41 catches, 503 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 of which came in 1 game. That's bad news. I mean, the guy's 35 years old.
In week 1, he had a season high of 10 targets. You know what he got with those 10 targets?
How many PPR fantasy points Andre Johnson mustered up with 10 targets? We're talking golden shovel. We're talking 6.4 PPR fantasy points on 10 targets. I mean, that's Devontae Adams bad. That's bad.
He had 1 game that was over 4 catches.
One
on the whole season.
That doesn't sound like Andre Johnson to me.
I mean, the list goes on. 13 games under 8.4 points.
13 of the 16 regular season games, this bum. This golden shovel bum went out there and got you 8.4 fantasy points or worse. I mean, my goodness. He had 3 0-point games.
And he was targeted in all of them.
3 0, but yeah, it wasn't like he wasn't on the field. He was just that bad. Like, 3 0-point games. I mean, two of them came in like what?
Weeks 3 and 4.
Weeks 3 and 4? And you're like, oh my God, this bum. This horrible bum. This gross bum. He scored me back-to-back 0 points. I mean, my God. And then you bench him, and somehow he summons the demons. Goes out there and summons the demons against his old team for 77 yards on 5 balls for 2 touchdowns. And you're like, I mean, you gotta know that's a mirage. I mean, if you started him the week after that, I mean, that's pretty dumb.
I don't think there's anyone that got any of those points.
That was the
there.
biggest smoke and mirrors I'd ever seen. Like, that was a mirage. Like, they were like just force feeding, just like, oh, show the Texans. We're going to show the Texans what they're missing out on.
Colts. Who was it again?
The Colts.
Yeah,
we're showing the
Texans.
Texans. They're going out there, they're like, we're going to show the Texans what they're missing out on. The Texans were like, okay.
On a primetime game, too. I think it was a Thursday night game.
So, you know, some of the nation that doesn't keep up on football, they're like, Andre Johnson's out there still getting it done because we only watch primetime football. Well, I'm here to tell you, he's golden shovel. This guy's undraftable puke, and I know he's basically going undrafted now. But don't even think about touching him. Don't even his name. You're like, oh, it's Andre Johnson. Maybe Marcus Mariota can do something. He's not. It's not going to happen. It's just so bad. I think we buried him enough.
We can't even look at it.
I want to put the shovel away. They've had enough. We put them under. Well, you got some risers. Let's get some risers out there.
Again, with the receivers in this division
Receiver. This division's about catching footballs. And, I mean, Dante Moncrief, I mean, he is rising. Was he? He's going, like, early to mid-fourth right now.
He's going early fourth.
I mean, that's a little steep for me. But if you look at the company around him, it's not too bad. It really isn't.
If you're looking at the guys around him, he's going around Jeremy Maclin, who I'll take Maclin over.
Yeah, give me Macklin over him.
Kelvin Benjamin.
Oh, give me Dante Moncrief over him every day. That's guaranteed.
Golden Tate.
That's more of a push. I mean, I know Golden Tate's going to be getting... You know what I mean? I don't know. I guess if you want security, I'd take Golden Tate.
And then Doug Baldwin.
Give me Moncrief.
I mean, in the first 5 games that Luck started last year, he missed a couple weeks in the middle of that stretch, but his first 5 games, Moncrief had 5 touchdowns in those games.
5 touchdowns. I mean, Luck is favoring him. I mean, there's no reason why Dante Moncrief can't lead the Indianapolis Colts in receptions. I know T.Y. is probably going to be that yards guy, but who knows? Maybe even Moncrief might be able to edge him in touchdowns, too. I mean, that's not unbelievable. I mean, T.Y.'s high watermark at touchdowns is 7 in a season. I mean, that's not untouchable by any means.
No.
I mean, especially since the guy had 5 touchdowns in Luck's, first 5 weeks, you said?
First 5 weeks.
I mean, that's not untouchable territory to believe.
And there's already been reports that they want to have shorter routes just so Luck can get the ball out of his hand quicker with this offensive line.
It's 3-step drops to the world with these bums out there.
So that's
blocking.
Moncrief all day, because T.Y. is more the guy, he wants to go over the top of the defense and stretch the field. This guy can be the possession receiver of the offense.
I don't know if Luck's going to have enough time for T.Y. to stretch that field. I mean, these guys are just opening gate. I mean, they're just swinging gates out there. They're not even blocking nobody. Like, they're just getting pushed around. Like, they're doing so bad, I'm almost borderline to might get my phone out. Maybe the Indianapolis Colts will call up old Word. Maybe at least I can do is fall down in front of the guy. Maybe he'd trip over me. I mean, that's better than what they're doing out there.
There's scouts saying he's currently running a 4.35 40.
That's incredible.
That's better than what he did at the combine.
That's so good.
And this guy's 222 pounds.
222-pound man running a 4.35 40. I mean, you don't even look at Moncrief. You're like, he's kind of in the middle of the field work. He doesn't look that fast. But, I mean, this is saying he is. I didn't think he was that fast. I put him down. I would guess he's like
like 4.5.
4.5. That's what I would have said. If you would have asked me without these numbers, like, what do you think Moncrief runs? I'd be like, 4.45, maybe 4.5. But 4.35? That's pretty damn quick.
Who else is rising?
Who else is rising? What we got? Lamar Miller's stock is blowing up.
Hot stock.
Blowing up. I mean, there might be a reason why it's blowing up. I mean, the guy has 8 touchdowns in each of the last 2 seasons under very poor Miami Dolphins offensive line. What were they ranked the last 2 years? 32nd?
According to Pro Football Focus, the last 2 years, Miami offensive line, 32nd and 31st.
Oh, my goodness.
And he was getting 4.6 yards a carry in Miami.
Behind those puke garbage offensive line. 32nd and 31st. If you don't know, that's last and second to last in the NFL. And this guy's still out there grinding out 4.6 yards a carry on you somehow. I mean, what has he got? He only had one 20-carry game last year? Come on, Dolphins. I mean, at least you could do is see what this guy can offer you up. I mean, what else are you doing?
And
besides throwing it to Jarvis Landry.
And he's going to the perfect team. If you're a running back, you couldn't ask for a Bill O'Brien Texas team.
Oh, look at this.
Alfred Blue.
That's insane. This is insane.
We talked about Lamar Miller only have one game of 20 yards or more.
20 carries or more?
20 carries or more. How many did Alfred Blue have last year?
Alfred Blue had 4. I mean, who the hell is giving Alfred Blue the ball 20 times in 4 different games? I mean, if they're willing to give Alfred Blue the ball 20 times in 4 different games, I think we're looking at over 10 games of Lamar Miller touching the ball.
Alfred Blue even had a 31 carry game.
Oh my goodness.
And
were they winning by 40?
And he got you 3.4 yards a carry last year.
Oh, woof. He's Wolf City. I mean, if they're willing to feed the rock to this grotesque bum, I mean, I'm pretty sure they're willing to feed the rock to Lamar Miller. I mean, 31 carries in a game to the likes of Alfred Blue? I mean, that's gross. We said Frank Gore is gross, but this guy, I think Frank Gore might have a leg up on this bum.
And Bill O'Brien, since coming to the Texans, he's ranked number 1 and number 5 in rushing attempts the past 2 years. So you know they're going to feed it to Miller. They didn't pay him to get less than 200 carries, which he's done every single season except for once.
I mean, the only reason why they probably were only the 5th team in rushing last year is because the first half of the season they were just getting beat so bad and they had to chuck the rock so many damn times. I mean, Bill O'Brien loves to run the ball. And I mean, I don't think there's any reason. I mean, if you're a betting man, Lamar Miller might lead the NFL in touches this year. I mean, he really could. If he stays healthy, I mean, what are they going to do? What are they going to do, put him on the bench so Alfred Blue can have a series? I don't think so. I mean, we just told you what Alfred Blue's capable of.
I mean, scouts around the league have already been saying Lamar Miller could have a season for the ages this year. And I think it can happen. I think he couldn't have gone to a better system.
If you can somehow sneak him in like the 7th pick of the 2nd round like we just did the other day, I mean, that's gold. I know he's been going late first, but we somehow got him at the 7th pick of the 7th round, and did I feel good about that. Oh, we got risers? More risers?
Another riser. My boy Bortles here.
Bortles.
Borderline undrafted last year, and now he's going right about 7th, 8th round. But this guy finished tied for 2nd in the league last year with 35 touchdowns.
I mean, that's just another reason why I'm saying don't draft a quarterback early. Because these dudes that are going undrafted will show up somehow, some way, and get tied for the league. I mean, tied for 2nd in the league in touchdowns and have over 4,400 yards and dude off the waiver wire. I mean, there's no reason to draft a quarterback in the 3rd or 4th round when you might be able to score somebody like this every year.
And keep in mind, this past year was Bortles' first full season. You're saying it was his 2nd year. They had Chad Henne start his rookie year, and they were planning on redshirting Bortles the entire season until they saw Henne go out there for 3 games. And they said, just get out there, Bortles.
They're like, I mean, listen, we're the Jacksonville Jaguars.
We're going to lose anyway.
Clearly, Chad Henne is not the answer to anything ever. So we're going to see what this old boy Blake Bortles got. I mean, we paid the piper for him. I mean, we might as well run him out there over Chad Henne. I mean, so what? I mean, as long as the guy might not lose his confidence, I mean, there's no reason not to get him the reps. I mean, the only reason not to get him the reps is because you're afraid he's going to get sacked every play.
Which he did set an NFL record most times sacked in his first 2 seasons, and that's missing multiple games his rookie year.
But he gets back up and he keeps on chucking it. So I mean, apparently it's not hurting his confidence too much. I mean, the guy, I mean, he's doing it. He had 11 games with 2+ touchdowns. I mean, that's pretty sexy. I mean, what did Matt Ryan have, 10 games with 1 or less? I mean, my goodness.
And he only had 1 0-touchdown game, but that was week 17 when the season was already done with. So he got you a touchdown every week. You put him in your lineup.
It wasn't just doing really touchdowns. He was getting yards too. He had 10 games over 250 yards. He had 6 of those 10 games over 300. I mean, that's solid production.
And even for a quarterback, he gets you over 300 rushing yards, a couple extra touchdowns running it in. I mean,
his weapons are, they're young and they are strong. I mean, the Allens and Allens, I mean, they're doing it for him out there.
The Allen brothers, they got Julius Thomas, who's healthy this year as a red zone threat, Marquise Lee, who they drafted above Robinson and Hearns, because Hearns went undrafted.
I mean, Marquise Lee can show up and do anything in 3 wide receiver sets.
That's
he could have a very sexy 3-headed monster out there at wide receiver. Marquise Lee can do what they thought he could do when they drafted him.
They're calling him like the white tiger out there.
White tiger.
You barely see him, but when you do, he's turning heads.
He's turning them heads. He's out there. He's like the snow leopard. He's a snow leopard out there.
I mean, the most problems he's had, he's a turnover guy. He led the league in interceptions and has not had a 60% completion percentage yet in his first 2 seasons. But this preseason, he's been over 70% completion percentage.
I mean, if he can get it up to say 65 even? I mean, the people are saying he's not going to repeat what he did last year, but I don't see any reason why he can't at least get 30 touchdowns. And I don't think the yards are really going anywhere, really. And if he can get those interceptions down a tick or two, I think he could easily slide into a top 10, top 8 quarterback for you again.
I think last year's 6th, and this is a guy that he pretty much went undrafted in most leagues.
I mean, he's still going as like a very bottom-end Tier 1 quarterback, or maybe even just the start of the Tier 2s. I mean, he's not getting drafted like he had a 35-touchdown season in his second year in the NFL by any means.
And for bonus, he's been calling Aaron Rodgers and Carson Palmer in the offseason for advice. So, I mean, those are two guys, they can help your career out a little bit.
Yeah, I got some advice from those two guys.
All right, one more riser.
One more. I'm going to go Derrick Henry. And I know I like the whole Titans backfield. Like, I like the DeMarco Murray at that 4th-round average draft position, and I really like Derrick Henry. I mean, this guy is a second-round pick this year. Yeah, 4.5 40, which isn't very good, but I mean his shiftiness. I mean, the guy weighs what? What is he? 6'3"?
250 pounds.
6'3", 250? Runs a 4.5 40? I mean, who is he? That guy from Dazed and Confused's grandmother? I mean, is he driving the Mack truck? I mean, if he's driving the Mack truck, I might have to sew him up on my rosters. I mean, preseason stats, he's blowing it up out there. He's got 6.35 yards a carry out there. He's got 35 carries for 216 yards and 3 touchdowns. I know it's preseason, and he hasn't been that first back out there, so maybe he is playing against some of these second-teamers.
He's taken some first-team reps this preseason.
He looked shifty out there. I just thought he was kind of a plotter, kind of a 3 yards in a cloud of smoke kind of guy. But, I mean, he looks shifty. He looks like he's got the quick feet out there.
I mean, he's a guy that you can draft along with DeMarco Murray. That's almost like drafting a backfield instead of a handcuff, because they're both going at a pretty good price.
Oh, I mean, you saw up his backfield for what, 4th, and what is he going for now?
4th, and now he's up to a
late
7th.
7th. I mean, if you drafted earlier, you could have sold up this backfield for like a 5th and a 10th. But now, it's getting a little more steeper. It's like a mid-4th, and you got to pay that late 7th to sew it up. But this is a little unsavory. So I kind of, if you really want to, in that case, I guess I'd kind of just pick the guy that I like the most and just go with that.
Yeah.
What we got?
We got the fallers.
Oh, we got some fallers. T.J. Yeldon. Now, T.J. Yeldon was a very high dynasty pick last year. He was like, what, top 2, top 3 dynasty pick last year. And he did not return immediate value whatsoever. And it's kind of looking like he might continue. I mean, they brought in Chris Ivory. So unless Chris Ivory looks straight bum or T.J. Yeldon looks straight cash, or Ivory gets hurt, I mean, I just don't know how his production's going to go up this year. I really don't.
I think outside of PPR, if Ivory's healthy, he's pretty much worthless in standard leagues. He only had 3 touchdowns last year on 218 touchdowns.
218 touches.
200, that'd be a lot of touches.
Jeez. Playing Madden over here.
3 touchdowns, 218 touches. And I don't even know if he's going to get 3 this year. Because they brought in Chris Ivory to be that goal line back. 8 touchdowns last year. That's what they've been doing in preseason so far. I think Chris Ivory, even for his value that he's going to be a touchdown machine.
I mean, especially if the Jaguars' defense is getting better like everybody says it is, and if they're staying in games or possibly even winning games in the second half, I mean, I don't think T.J. Yeldon's going to have much value. I mean, if they're winning football games in the second half, Chris Ivory's the one on the field. I mean, he's the clock killer. He's the short yardage back, the guy you want to mull the game away with, not Yeldon. Yeldon's that 3rd down, 2-minute drive, playing from behind type of back.
All right, right now, T.J. Yeldon's going in the 9th round.
I like that value, though. That's not so bad.
That's so low that I'm going to risk it.
I mean, Chris Ivory is not like the most non-injury-prone guy ever. I mean, before he was in New York, I mean, he even got dinged up last year. But before that, he had a terrible injury record in New Orleans. Terrible.
Yeah, I think Yeldon, for that price, if you're in a PPR league, he's not worth picking up. I mean, who knows? It's only his second year. I mean, this guy could show up, and they said that he almost looks like a young Le'Veon Bell out there. I don't see that much, but
I mean, Chris Ivory's not
Chris
an
Ivory.
unstoppable force. I mean, if he starts to slip and Yeldon starts to grind,
Chris Ivory, I think, is the only person that can beat him is Chris Ivory.
I mean,
like I
I
said, injuries is the only thing that's stopping him.
I'd like to believe the Jaguars would like to play Yeldon over Ivory just because, they drafted him. I'd like to, but the thing is, if he just can't, I mean, they gave it to Gerhardt 4 times on the goal line last year. 4 times in a row. What are you doing? I mean, that is awful. I mean, you can't even give your boy you drafted 1 attempt, and you're giving this bum, this awful, gross bum, like 4 attempts in a row. Like, I'll never see it coming the 3rd and the 4th time. Well, even if they don't see it coming, who cares?
If he can't do it.
He can't even get past himself. How's he supposed to get past defenders? It's ridiculous.
Another faller. Say 2 years ago, 2014, this guy had one of the hottest stocks going, but Andrew Luck is sliding out there.
Sliding down to like 7th rounds and draft. We got him in the 7th round the other night. I mean, I love that.
And I
value.
think for sliding down I think he can win you leagues at that draft position.
It's crazy. I mean, Andrew Luck in the 7th round. I mean, you might have just drafted the number 1 overall quarterback in fantasy in the 7th round. I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility. Why the hell is it? I mean, why can Andrew Luck finish better than Cam Newton? Yes. Can he finish better than Rodgers? Yes. I mean, 10 people finished better than Rodgers last year. I mean, that's not crazy.
Even before he was hurt, this guy did not look good, though. In his first 6 starts, he had 12 interceptions.
Woof.
But, like we said, we're hoping he returns that 2014 Andrew Luck, where he had 40 touchdowns and had 10 300-plus yard games.
10 300-plus yard games and 40 touchdowns. I mean, that's number 1 quarterback points right there.
And I think his weapons are better.
Oh, he didn't have the Moncrief.
And Philip Dorsett, it's his second year
Got
now.
another year under his belt.
They're going to see a lot of 3-receiver sets.
I mean, the Colts going to have to run the ball. I mean, their defense isn't really stopping anybody. And Frank Gore, it's not like you can rely on Frank Gore to win you football games. I mean, it's going to be Andrew Luck all day. Like, he's going to throw probably 40, 50 passes a game.
Oh, yeah. Do you think T.Y. Hilton can creep up into that first tier of wide receivers?
He's kind of that board. I don't know. It'd be like a low, like 11 or 12, like a 12-teamer, like maybe like bottom in tier 1. But, I mean, he's not really that PPR guy, and he really is about the long touchdowns. He really is, especially with Moncrief there to, like, take away all those intermediate routes. I mean, I do like the guy, but
He's gone 7-5, 7-5 his first 4 years in touchdowns.
so he's due for that 7. 7-5, 7-5. What's next? 7.
And like we said, he's never been a big PPR guy. He hasn't had 100 catch season or anything. He relies on taking that top off the defense for the deep ball.
Which he does very well. I mean, his value was plummeted last year because Matt Hasselbeck just can't really chuck it football down the field like old boy Andrew Luck can. Andrew Luck's a mountain man. He's a lumberjack-looking guy. He's out there chopping wood on his days off.
All right, now getting into some values here.
Bringing up them values. Oh, the value.
Here's a guy I sewed up late, and I remember everyone in the league giving me stuff about it because I drafted him as my number 1 tight end. But if you got Delaney Walker, you got yourself a stud all year in your lineup.
PPR stud.
He, as a tight end, 94 catches.
94 balls.
Over 1,000 yards,
Old
6
man
touchdowns.
Old man Walker went out there and reeled in 94 balls. That's boss hogging. I mean, look at this guy. He had, 26.9% of the Titans' targets? That's leading all tight ends for your team's percentage of your team's targets. And it was like, what?
10th overall. Not even first in tight ends. If overall, he's 10th in percentage of targets.
10th, wide receivers included. 10th overall percent in teams' targets. I mean, it's insane for a tight end to get thrown to that much. Almost 30% of the passes attempted were to Delaney Walker.
And with those 94 balls, he had 11 games of 6+ catches as a tight end.
I mean, my God. I mean, that's so many. 11 games of 6 catches in PPR. That's gold. Like, that is incredible. This guy's consistency throughout. I mean, he's not even going to go out there and lay an egg for you at all.
And I don't think his touches are going to go down this year.
I don't see how they could. They already sent Dorial Green Beckham packing because he don't know what the hell's going on. And I mean, Kendall Wright's hurt, and I think he's bumming too anyway.
They signed Andre Johnson.
They dug him up again. They're trying to reanimate the corpse, but they don't have the necromancer Drew Brees there. So I just don't think reanimation's in the cards. And who else they got at wide receiver? I mean, oh my goodness, what, Rashard Matthews?
They brought him in this year, and he's the number 1 guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is. And Rashard Matthews is your number 1 wide receiver. You know who's getting passes thrown to him? Delaney Walker. That's who's getting passes thrown to him. Not Rashard Matthews, Kendall Wright, or the corpse of Andre Johnson. Ridiculous. More value.
All right.
Drinking out them values.
We're talking about these young receivers. We're not just talking about Jags Allen Robinson. We're talking about the Jags Allen Hurns. This guy.
I mean, if you're talking we usually talk PPR, but if you're getting standard leagues, this guy's even better for you. I mean, 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. I mean, how many players in the NFL were even doing that last year? Not very many.
He had a 7-game stretch where he got you a touchdown every single game.
I mean, that's standard gold. 5 100-yard games? Being the second wide receiver on his own football team? And I mean, it wasn't like he was a second wide receiver to like old Steve Smith. He was a second wide receiver to the up-and-coming, show-stopping, main event Allen Robinson, who we discussed earlier in this podcast. And this guy's still out there catching you 5 games over 100 yards. Incredible.
That's only one less than A-Rob out there. I mean, he got paid. They paid him this offseason. But here's another stat. We're talking about duos here. Robinson and Allen Hurns are the first pair of receivers in NFL history to have 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns under the age of 24 in the same season. Now, I know that sounds like a LeBron stat of adding all these little things in there to make it work, but they've really got something going.
I mean, you can contribute that a little bit to the league going a lot more pass-happy, but it's still damn right incredible. I mean, you can contribute just a little bit to, like, you know, everybody in the league throws it probably 60% of the time. But still, I mean, 2 dudes on the same team, first time ever going for 1,010 in NFL history? Under the age of 24? I mean, what, you think they're going to get, like, worse out there? I don't think that's even possible.
No. And
both second-year guys doing this. I mean, what, their third year, they're just like, I don't know. I mean, maybe we're not the sexy place.
I mean, people are saying their production's going down. Blake Bortles' production going down. These guys combined for only 144 catches. I mean, Antonio Brown and Julio each had 136.
It is crazy. I mean, as far as points per catch go, he's only like, what, second in the NFL? Behind his own teammate, Allen Robinson.
Watkins, Sammy Watkins is in there too. I believe those are top 3 in yards and points per catch.
Points per catch. I mean, I know he's more of a deep ball, and it's kind of watered down because these dudes have so many receptions. But still, if you can bring up any stat to say that this guy is better than Julio, Antonio Brown, and Odell Beckham Jr., I mean, if you can bring up any stat that says that they're better than him in, I mean, I don't think that's like a bad thing by any means. How can that be bad?
I mean, let's go back to Allen Robinson for a second. People are saying he's not going to get you 14 touchdowns. I mean,
But even if, I mean, okay, let's say we'll cut these touchdowns down by 4. We'll put Allen Robinson at 10 touchdowns.
Which
now,
is
I mean,
easy.
Because the guy's beasted in the red zone. I mean, 10 touchdowns. I mean, I think you write him down for that. But, he only had 80 catches. So let's move those 80. We'll move those 80 catches up to 90 balls. And we'll kind of go a little bit under his yards per catch. And we'll go from 1,400 yards to 1,550 yards. And with those 10 more catches, and then 150 more yards, that's still a better year with the 4 less touchdowns. That's 1 more fantasy point in PPR with the 90, the 15, 50, and the 10 than 80, 14, and 14 was. And I mean, I don't think going up 10 balls is by any means insane. It's not like the guy went out there and caught 140 and we're talking about him going up to 150. No, we're talking about him going from 80 to 90. I mean, that's not insanity.
I think these guys are the next Jimmy Smith, Keenan McCardell in Jacksonville there. These guys are going to be there for a long time. They sewed up Hearns to a 4-year deal.
It's crazy, but I think they're better than Jimmy Smith and Keenan McCardell. But those, I mean, Jimmy Smith was a man for years and years and years. If Allen Robinson can keep this up,
I mean, they're just so young, and they're just putting up huge numbers out there.
He's going to take down those Jacksonville Jaguar receiving records if he keeps this up for.
He's already got some of them.
Go for like 3 or 4 more years. He's probably going to be laying them all to bed. Putting them all to bed out there.
All right. That's it for this week's show.
That'll do it for today.
But make sure to subscribe, like our videos, leave us comments. We get to all your comments there, so don't be afraid.
Ask us questions. We will answer them. This guy said it was bothering him that the bear head wasn't between Walter and Gale, and guess what's between Walter and Gale now? The bear head. So we'll take your advice as well, my friends.
Thanks a lot for watching. We'll catch you later.
Thank you.